Hi, guys. Welcome to the Collab podcast. I'm Michelle, and I'm here with my sister Devin. And we're here for another episode of another very difficult but also very necessary discussion about Black Lives Matter. And we have two very, very special guests here with us today. We have Chavia and Deion. These two are incredible dancers, incredible human beings. Actually, before we hit record, we had a moment where we were purging some feelings. And it just is a testament to how much we love you guys and how much we miss you. And being able to see your faces, even though it's on, this Zoom call, being able to see your faces, I think surfaced a lot of those emotions and it came out how much we missed you. So thank you guys for being here with us today. Welcome.
Thanks for having us. Thank you again.
Yeah, super excited to be here.
All right, let's jump right in. So, first of all, happy Juneteenth. This is a super important, super historical day. Although our episode won't be released today, and on the day that we're recording, we do want to acknowledge it. It's a historical day, and I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. And I think that this couldn't be a more perfect day to have this discussion with you guys to commemorate Juneteenth. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I want to know, and I know that Devin does too, and we'll start, Chavia, with you, and then we'll jump over to Deion. Tell us how this recent movement of, the Black Lives Matter coming to light and this uprising has affected you or any loved ones. Chavia, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so it's been both, good and bad. I definitely see like a lot of the positive in it that, we're all talking about it. It's a discussion that, nobody can really dodge right now because it's just like everybody is talking about it. And we're definitely seeing we're starting to see some attention, hopefully some change with all of this, but it has been also a lot. It has been kind of heavy to kind of see these things on repeat day in and day out. And it's definitely taking its toll on me. It's taking its toll on like my siblings, having to check in on them. But I think it's great that we're talking about it, and it's a discussion that everyone's having.
For me, it's a lot. Out of the first generation of my family, I am the baby. So like I constantly get like text messages, like when I'm like phone calls when I'm going to work and stuff like that. And like, sometimes it's kind of like a 50-50 thing because like, I'm always like, hey, like, I'm doing fine. Like, I gotta get to work. Like, like I can't just like stay in the house because you want me to be safe and stuff like that. But then it's also like kind of like overwhelming because there's so many of my older big cousins that are like worried about my safety in a sense. Especially like down here in San Diego, like, like we are like a lot more chill. I would say a lot more integrated. So like we don't really see stuff as heavily in a sense. And I was like, I was blessed to be able to experience that. But I feel like as like it's come out more, it's like, it's almost like a culture shock in a sense. Like, like not that like I didn't know that I was Black or like, that I wasn't like, growing up in a Black family. It's just like, we didn't have to worry about all those things. Because like, like my family is very mixed. In a sense. So like, it just, as more comes out, I think it gets harder to digest in a sense. Like, like there were things that like, I did see growing up as a kid, but like, not everything always affected me. So, it's just, yeah, it's like, it's a big pill. What's that?
So growing up in San Diego, was there ever a time that you can remember that you experienced racism or saw a friend or a family member experience racism? We'll start with Deion and then turn over to Chavia.
Yes, most definitely. Probably since I was a kid, I grew up in the Castle Park area. So like, everything was like, it was like a little bit more ghetto in a sense, to be honest. Like, I've gotten followed in stores a couple times, like, whether it's a grocery store, a clothing store. I've had arguments with people growing up as a kid and stuff like that. Like, I've been called the N-word, of course. You know, it's just like little stuff like that. Had friends that would ask me if it was cool if they said it and stuff. You know, never, of course, from family in a sense. But it hasn't been an everyday thing, but like, you know, it was probably like a bi-weekly thing growing up, to be honest.
I can't really think of any times that like it really did impact me or stand out too much. It was just like the subtleties that people would do that, you know, to anybody else, it's kind of just like someone doing something. But like if you walk past someone and they kind of like clench their stuff a little bit tighter, like no one really noticed that. But like if you kind of you see it often, it's like, oh, you know, it's kind of just becomes normal. Same like Deion, like I come from a mixed family. So I was very fortunate to kind of grow up seeing a lot and not really experiencing too much of that. But, you know, I definitely heard stories from like my dad growing up and experiencing a little bit of that out here for sure.
So, you know, we're navigating through a lot of change and a lot of new territory, and there's a lot of information that's being thrown in our faces. I think in one way it's extremely positive because anytime you open up your social media, it's in your face. People are aware. People are trying to make their voices heard. They're trying to, you know, to stand up for this Black Lives Matter movement. I know I certainly have been impacted by it. I've talked about it with Devin. She has as well. What are some resources or petitions or any other activity that you guys have seen that you support that you'd love to recommend to our listeners? Chavia, we'll start with you and then we'll jump over to Deion.
Yeah, I would recommend, you know, just talking to someone, just seeing what other people are posting and kind of doing more research and seeing what they have to post and share, because it's, you know, it's information and it's coming from, you know, it's a lot of information and it could be helpful. But yeah, websites or things like NAACP is always like super solid. What was another one? There's like this group that I'm following that does like a lot on mental health. And that's like a huge thing right now because, you know, like we're all talking about, we're seeing this day in and day out. And what a lot of people are recommending is taking a break, taking like a social media break needed because it's just too much content. It's just too much negativity. And so, yeah, I would recommend, you know, just looking at anything related to mental health. That's I think something that everyone is being impacted by right now, and they might not be aware of it. It's just like, oh, I'm having a bad day, but it could be you're having a bad day because you're just looking at so much negative content. Reaching out, talking to friends, talking to other individuals that, you know, that might want to talk about it, and also know that it's okay to not be corrected, but just be informed and just hear somebody out. You know, it's not someone trying to correct you, but it's just getting the right information so that way you can post the right information and things like that.
Cool. I agree with Shavia. I think it's most definitely about communicating and talking to someone who you feel is in that expertise. Like, you know, you can't just ask anyone, of course. Like, you know, it comes off a lot better to ask someone that you are comfortable with, who can have the same love language as you or communication skills. So that way they can like further assess and like, you know, explain in a more convenient way. You know, I think a good one would probably be like defund the police, if that makes sense. You know, you can do like bail funds. You know, you can support psychologists, donate to colleges, Black colleges, specifically HBCUs. You know, I just think it's just like about like navigating and getting out there and figuring out like which lane is best for you, because not everyone lane is good for everyone, but everyone can contribute and, you know, figure out whatever it is they're comfortable with in the correct way.
Yeah, and with that too, that brings up a good point. Even if it's like something that you like to do, see if there's individuals that you can follow that are doing the same thing, like they supporting small businesses, supporting Black businesses. It doesn't only have to be a restaurant. It could be a bookstore, it could be a craft store, it could be all these things. So supporting local businesses, you'll also see what they're doing to spread the word, what they're doing to share how it's impacting them. But yeah, that's what Deion is saying is great.
I know that Chavia, you've been participating or have participated in some protests. Is that correct? What advice would you give to someone who is thinking about participating in one, especially with the COVID pandemic, all those numbers rising again? How can they stay safe? And also, just be as impactful as they can during a protest?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would definitely recommend looking at AOC's Instagram. She has this really cool print that shows like ways to be safe when you're protesting, and it's just some basic things like cover up your arms if you have tattoos. Make sure you're wearing like proper gear and things like that. What essentials to take with you. For anybody that's looking to go to a protest, I would say look into it, see where it's at, see all of those details. Follow all those guidelines, and just remember that it's a protest, and act peacefully. Go with a friend, go with a group of people, and yeah, another thing that I saw with COVID-19 still active is self quarantine for like up to 14 days afterwards, and then try to go get tested at least like 5 days after you participate in the protest, because you are amongst a lot of individuals and everyone is covering their faces. But, every now and then people are moving their mask down to breathe or to cough or whatever it is. So, that's just an extra safety precaution to take. I definitely did that. And I'm glad that I did that, because I didn't think about that while I was out there. I'm just like, I'm out here trying to do what's right, trying to, let my voice be heard. But then at the same time, I'm like, oh crap, like, I have asthma. I'm like, I shouldn't be out here. Like I'm not in the, this is not good. But yeah, just follow all those safety precautions and, do it safely.
Deion, were you participating in any protests?
Actually, no. I did not get the opportunity to. I work at a nonprofit, and I'm leading there, so it's very dangerous for me to be there and at the protest, especially with my grandma inside the house. She has congestive heart failure, so for me, it's like more so like about like donating money to Black businesses, and like finding out how the ways I can support in a sense, and like and then also just for the simple fact that like riots aren't really my thing in a sense. Like I do think that there are a lot of peaceful protests. It's just it starts to like run my anxiety up, and like knowing that I have to like figure out other solutions about how I can help and how I can make a difference. Like like even as a kid, like I could never handle like any of like the old MLK videos, like the old slave videos, like movies. Like I always was the one that got up and stepped out because it was always too much for me.
I love what you both said, and I want to circle back on those points and acknowledge them for our listeners. I love that the approach that you're both taking is you don't have to do all of it. You don't have to do the full spectrum of everything. Do what makes you feel safe. Do what is within your comfort zone, but do something and take action. It doesn't have to be A to Z, and you don't have to attend all the protests. You don't have to follow everyone. You don't have to support all the businesses, but choose things that spark joy. Deion, I love what you said about find someone that, that speaks your love language that you can effectively communicate with. I love that, because I think so much, especially for people like me and my sister, at first, when all of the news broke out, we were paralyzed by the amount of information and the amount of actions that we had the option to take, but we didn't know the right way to proceed. And I love that point. It doesn't matter what action you take, whether it be large or small, but take action and do what sparks joy so that you yourself feel authentic and you yourself feel good about it. And I love that. So I want to make sure that our listeners know that. And everything that Chavia and Deion talked about, everything that they referenced, we'll be sure to link those in the show notes. So thank you guys. That was beautiful.
Deion, I want to ask you a little bit about your work with your nonprofit. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about that?
Yes. So I am at Community Through Hope. I am the director of programs. We work specifically with the food bank in Phoenix, San Diego, and we're acting as an emergency food bank for COVID-19. So my job is to figure out how much food we take in, and then how much we distribute out to anyone who needs food itself. That includes produce, vegetables, fruit. Sometimes we get meat. Sometimes we have milk and cheese. Sometimes we have bread. It just all depends on like what we get in. We do like drive-throughs, so people pull up, just tell us how big their family size is, open their trunks, and then put the food in, and then they can head out. We also do diapers as well. So it's actually very impactful. Very.
That's amazing work. Is there maybe a website or a place of information that you can point our listeners to if they want to make donations, and what kind of donations will you guys be taking during this time?
Yeah, so you can go to communitythroughhope.org. There is a donations tab in the website itself. If you would like to donate in person, stuff that we take in, like all canned foods, all dry foods. So you can do like mac and cheese boxes or any type of box. You can do ramen noodles, Spam, ketchup, mustard, anything that's concealed in a sense.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I know that was a little bit off topic, but we definitely wanted to highlight some of the great work that you're doing, Deion. So thank you for doing that for our community. We really appreciate you, and I'm
that's
glad
fantastic.
Yes, and I'm glad that we got to highlight that. Kind of going back to the way that we can support and filter information, an uncomfortable discussion to have, I think, with people, but I think it's necessary, is to talk about the right way to support. I know we talked about, setting your intentions and being really intentional with the types of things that you support. But is there a wrong way to support? I'm interested to see in, maybe you're having a conversation with someone and, they're saying something that you don't agree with. What's the right way to educate people and really direct the narrative to be supportive? Chavia, we'll start with you and then we'll jump to Deion.
Ooh, you mean just like in a conversation with somebody? Yeah, I think I'll say this. I think if Sesame Street can talk about racism and troubling things like this, and I think any human, any adult can talk about something this problematic, this intense. I think that it's just a matter of just giving somebody the heads up, like, hey, do you mind if we talk about this, rather than just like going for the jugular. You definitely want to let somebody know, hey, we gotta want to check that a little bit.
I think that, of course, it just comes down to communication again. The best way to support or to understand something is to figure out what the intention is and how you can reach your goal in the most respectful way. I mean, for me, everything always goes back to respect. Like how you say something versus how something comes off are two very different things. And I feel like sometimes people can disagree with certain things, which is fine, but sometimes two things can be true. You can have a solid point and there can be another solid point that clash, So I think it's about being open to communicate, listening to understand and not listening to reply. two separate things. So I just think it's about like how, like what your goal is and how you want to obtain that goal.
Yeah, I like what Deion said, having that intention, and it kind of is like the same thing where it's like, preparing somebody for that conversation. Like, what do you want to get out of this? Like, where's the problem? How do we need to adjust this? How can we both see where, our point of views and things like that? So absolutely, communication is so key. Yeah.
That's great. And I love that you both are so, and I'm not surprised because I know both of you and you're both amazing, but I love how you both are, big promoters of let's have a conversation. Let's hear both sides. Let's have a debate and let's be open, but let's also be respectful of each other. But I love that you're open to that because I think that is the way that we're going to really propel this movement is to keep having these discussions and not stop and not shy away from having these debates, right? Because you could easily change someone's mind if you make a good enough point, right? And the point is to really help people that are stubborn and don't believe that basic human decency should exist. Those are the minds that we need to change. And so I love that you're both advocates for that. That's super important.
I know that we have a lot that we want to talk about today, but I do want to circle back for a minute to talk a little bit about what Chavia is doing, because Chavia is also involved in nonprofit. Michelle told you guys that Chavia and Deion are some of the best human beings that you could ever meet. So Chavia, would you mind telling our listeners a little bit about what you do and if there's a way for them to get involved and support during this time?
Yeah, for sure. I am an SLS worker, supported living service, and I work with individuals that have intellectual disabilities. And so with COVID being active and with everything else been going on, we've had to do provide services online, so all digital. And it's been cool. It's been challenging, but everyone that I've been working with has been doing a phenomenal job understanding what's happening, taking some time to themselves, and then processing that at their own time and navigating to a position where they can start to understand this more and then move forward with that. How you could help is, I guess, maybe just looking in local areas in San Diego that do the same work. I think UCP is still down there. I think Easter Seals is down there. I don't really know how to contribute because our company is so small that we kind of just work in-house and everything's like really, really direct. But in terms of with the community, the Westside Regional Center might have some workshops for individuals with intellectual disabilities that might need a place to go to talk to other peers about what's going on, something like that. But yeah, I would just look online, see what other organizations have going on.
I love that. Thank you both for the work that you do in the community. And, for my listeners that don't believe me, these are both incredible human beings. I feel very privileged to know them.
So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about maybe some books, documentaries, blogs, social media accounts that you guys follow that you feel would be really beneficial for our listeners to look into to learn more about Black Lives Matter. Let's start with Deion.
So a lot of the stuff that I have is specifically for dance related stuff, I guess, in a sense, because that's my life. I think following big dance artists or Black directors, people like Kara Harper, one of my directors, Gustavo, great information. Everyone's always sharing, David Slaney. There's a lot of resources out there that you can check on social media, and all the little hashtags, they all link into each other, so it's not like you're gonna get stuck or lost to find something. in a sense. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I just like posted a bunch of stuff today on like movies and stuff you can watch. Stuff like 13 is great. It's a pretty heavy documentary, but I think everybody should watch it. Like anything like that you feel like would support Black artists, whether it's the director, the actor, the makeup artist, whatever it is, because there's so many movies out there outside of what people are just posting that people should know about. Like one of my favorites is Candyman. It's a horror movie, and he's like one of the first like Black scary figures that I saw. I was like, holy crap, that's cool. And yeah, I think Jordan Peele's supposed to be doing a remake of that. That's supposed to come out this year. But yeah, like Jordan Peele would be great. Yeah, like Deion said, like any celebrity that you kind of follow would be great. Just to see like what other content they're posting. Something fun that's lighthearted is Astronomy Club on Netflix. It's so funny. It's a sketch show, and it's like an all Black cast, and it's just really funny. It's a good way to kind of like laugh through everything that's going on. But yeah, follow friends, see what they're posting, see what other people are sharing, what they like, but kind of balance it out, like don't watch too much heavy stuff at once, because then that'll be really heavy on you. I did that the other day, and I was like, I need to go to bed. Can't be watching all these documentaries back to back to back.
I love that. That's a great piece of advice, right? Is just to bring balance to it, because, again, going back to the thought of, there's too much information and you're sort of paralyzed by it. It could have the same effect if you were watching something all day, super heavy, watching footage from protests and things like that. So I think that's really great advice to kind of balance it out. And I was giggling, Chavia, because I, of course, never thought to like watch scary movies. You know how I feel about scary movies. I don't like them.
Yeah.
But I think it's so great. I mean, you made a great point about supporting Black artists, and I think that's really important. And Deion, I love what you said about tying it back to dance and following these directors and, leaders in our dance community and hearing what they have to say, because I'm sure they're posting great content. So I love that you made that point. That's something that I actually didn't think of. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's going to be my action for today.
So, there's a lot that we can be doing in terms of looking into these resources, signing petitions, and also taking some time to balance out mental health as well. But I want to ask you, we'll start with Chavia and then turn it over to Deion. What are some maybe mistakes that you're seeing people make when they're trying to support, but maybe not going about it the right way? I know, Chavia, we kind of touched on earlier how, there sort of needs to be, how do I want to put it? We want to not necessarily jump at people and correct them or scrutinize them for not doing things a certain way. We're just trying to keep everyone informed.
That's a great question. Yeah, I would just say to do an extra bit of research. If you're not sure about it, just double check. A perfect example is that black screen that everybody was posting. A lot of people didn't know what it was, including myself. And something in my gut was like, don't post this. Like, I don't know much about it. And then sure enough, I saw somebody sharing what the true nature of that was. And so I think it's just, just taking that extra bit of time to see where this information is coming from. And I don't really think, as long as it has good intentions, as long as you, I would say, reach out to people and just double check, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I don't think he'll mind me calling him out on this, but Eric checked in with me about something like his dance classes that he's teaching every Thursday. And, he has the biggest heart, and he came to me with this idea, and he was like, I know that it means a big thing, but I just want to make sure that I'm doing this the right way, that I'm not taking, the light away from anybody else. I was like, absolutely not. Like, this is how you are doing your part to share what this means to you and give back. And I think as long as you're willing to have that conversation, then I think it should be okay.
I think there's not enough patience right now. I think that it's just like, oh, there needs to be like a answer right then and there, like, I think that sometimes people forget that, like, especially like with racism and all the stuff that's going on, there's like a lot of trauma that is underlying or that has not been brought up. So, like, sometimes it comes off as dismissive, and like, sometimes you can unintentionally be dismissive as well. I think it's very so much like, of course, about getting educated and stuff. And I just, think it's about not getting offended by specific trigger words. Like, I know like a trigger word is education, like, being uneducated or getting educated. It's not like the same thing as going to college and graduating and getting a degree. Like, when people say get educated, it means like get educated in the culture itself. Like, like it's very quick to, be like, hey, like, well, your culture is this, and this, but, so why are you guys complaining about X, Y, and Z? But like, there's a whole nother set of alphabet that you're like not taking into account, right? Like, it's like a whole big problem in a sense. Like, like even like in terms of stuff like all lives matter, like, like, of course, all lives matter. Like, no one wants anyone to die or get hurt or to get sick and stuff like that. Like, the point is like, we do want the whole community to grow, but there is a certain part of the community that isn't growing. Like, like if two buildings are burning and one's on fire, it's not that both buildings aren't important, but you're going to put out the ones on fire in a sense. So I think in terms of like when we are trying to, engage, I think what's really going wrong in a sense is just mainly the lack of patience or like the lack of respect or like, there's no benefit of the doubt. Like, there's no large picture trying to understand. It's just to dismantle and stuff. Like, there's no like sense of de-escalation in a positive way. Like, it's just always like, it's always up for debate, and when something's always up for debate, there's never really a good intention behind it.
Oh my God, Deion, that was beautiful. I think you made a great point. It's obvious that all lives matter. So the people that are saying that, I know it really fuels me, right? Because by saying all lives matter, we're now taking away the focus from the issue that we're trying to have a conversation about, and that is Black Lives Matter, right? And I think, Deion, you made a great point there, and I definitely think that, and we had this conversation in our last episode, I think a big part of it that's missing, and you touched on this, Deion, is educating yourself, right? We've historically all run to the forefront because we want to support Black Lives Matter. And I say all, I don't mean all, because I know there are some people that don't support it, which is the reason why we're having this discussion. But I think we have instinctively said, okay, we're all going to go run and support. And then 2 days later, we all go back to our normal lives and we've forgotten about it. And I think the piece that's missing, and I said this in the last episode, is that we really need to be intentional about educating ourselves. And that's one thing that I learned from the last episode. We need to fill those gaps. We need to understand the history. We need to understand what our intentions are so that we can appropriately support and appropriately take action. And I love what you both had to say about that. Really impactful.
You guys touched on this earlier, and I really love that as part of this conversation that we're having, that you've both touched on a sense of taking care of yourself, being aware of your mental health. So let's talk about maybe one thing that is giving you hope during these very challenging times. Let's go ahead and start with Deion.
Good question. Honestly, I would just say the kids. These kids, man, it's a different world. of course. Like, if anyone's more integrated, it's all them. Like, you use social media, TV, you like see like kids in the streets protesting, rioting, and stuff like that. Like, they're going harder than some of these adults, and like, they will always be the future. Like, you can never stop a future generation from coming up. It'll always be that thing, and I think these kids are most definitely a different breed.
You're asking what to be hopeful for, or what? Yeah. I think, yeah, exactly what Deion said. Like, the kids, I think everyone's seeing that there's something wrong, and everyone's standing up and saying that it's not right. And I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway. I believe that there's going to be change. I believe that we're going to see a shift in some things. I mean, just the amount of attention that this is all getting, just the fact that everyone's talking about this, I think that's definitely a good start. I take any kind of baby steps for anything. Like, it's definitely like a kudos kind of thing. So this is definitely something that I like to see is, just people being more supportive, more respectful, more understanding, and more patient.
Awesome. Unrelated, what's going on with you guys? Are you still dancing? Deion?
Of course. Is that even a question? Yes, I am. I'm still on SGDM currently, waiting for us to come out of the COVID hiatus. I am also on A1 Collective in LA, so I'm transiting back and forth. And then hopefully I'll be able to go back into the studio soon to teach. And yeah.
Did you say you're commuting from LA to San Diego?
I commute from San Diego to LA. I live in SC. So I go to Snow Globe.
Oh, dang. You safe on that drive. That is a drive.
It is.
A drive.
I go twice a week. I get home from like anywhere between like 2 to like 4 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Keep it up.
Thank you.
The most that I'm doing with dancing is like freestyling. Because right before we got into this COVID madness, I was working with some friends on a movie, and we were actually just about to start the dance stuff in the movie. So as that was approaching, and as I was getting really excited, and like I had all of my storyboards together and everything, it's like, we got to take a break. So we're kind of waiting till everything gets back up and going to get that going, because that'll be exciting. But dancing on my own in my free time, listening to music.
That's awesome. I love that. That fills my heart. I personally haven't been dancing as much as I should have, but I'm hoping that once we all get out of quarantine, we can all be together and we can all dance in a studio together, because I sure miss it. That's for one thing. I sure miss it. I miss seeing all of your faces. We're going to start to wrap up, but before we do, I'm going to hand it over to Devin in a little bit, but I just want to personally thank you both. I've said it many times during this episode, and I can't say it enough. I think that you're both incredible human beings, incredible dancers, and it is truly a pleasure to know you, and I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to sit down with us and have this super important discussion. It's necessary, and I hope that both of you will join us again for another episode. I'm voluntelling you.
I want to echo everything that Michelle just said. You guys have been such an amazing part of our dance journey. It's really an honor and a privilege to be able to call you guys our friends. And I just want to encourage our listeners to follow Chavia and Deion. I mean, speaking of amazing Black artists, if you want to support some of the best of them, go follow them on their social media accounts. We'll have those linked in the description box below. And then maybe, Chavia and Deion, where can our listeners find you on the interwebs? Let's start with Chavia.
You can find me on Instagram, Chavia Knight. That's Knight with a K. Yeah.
Well, you can find me on Instagram, of course. It's just my first name with all the vowels doubled. Hopefully YouTube soon. I want to start doing project videos and concept videos. So that's the goal.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So listeners, as part of our call to action for today, we want to invite you to follow Chavia and Deion on their amazing journeys as really superb human beings, but also spectacular Black artists in our community. And then, of course, be sure to check out the show notes below for all of the resources and information that they shared with us today.